Hello everyone, it's George from Any Old Music again. Last week we attempted to orchestrate Mozart's K545 for Seal Sonata, turning it into something resembling a Gothic horror soundtrack. Today on the back of that we'll take a closer look at the techniques employed in a Gothic horror soundtrack. That Gothic horror soundtrack being the opening cue introduction of Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, composed by Danny Elfman. In our analysis we'll be extracting 5 distinct playing techniques from this iconic score, some of which I used last week, but also some that we didn't explore in the previous video, shedding light on their nuances and applications. As you may or may not be aware, I'm doing this in preparation for my upcoming course Orchestrating Gothic Horror, where I'll be taking a silent cinema cue called The Vampire, which is in the horror style. We'll be analysing it and then orchestrating it in a Gothic horror style. There are links below to find out more. Sleepy Hollow is a film that was released in 1999. It was directed by Tim Burton and bears a haunting score composed by his long-term musical collaborator Danny Elfman. The dark tale of Ichabod Crane's murder investigations in the eerie town of Sleepy Hollow demanded an orchestral soundscape that delved into the macabre and mysterious. It's a great representation of what I mean when I say Gothic horror music. Collaboration was at the heart of bringing this enchanting yet chilling musical landscape to life. In the realm of orchestrations, it's fascinating to note the involvement of several brilliant orchestrators alongside Elfman. Those listed on IMDb, which I've used as the source for this information, are Conrad Pope, Albert Lloyd Olson, Mark Mann and Mark Mackenzie. Notably, orchestrators David Slonaker and Steve Bartek contributed significantly to this specific cue that we're looking at today, and they are named in the top right corner of the score as the orchestrators. Throughout this analysis I'll be featuring brief excerpts accompanied by note performer renditions to delve into the Sleepy Hollow's orchestral marvels. For a more thorough dive into the whole score of the cue, David McCauley offers an insightful reduction score analysis on his channel, shedding light on the intricacies and brilliance of Danny Elfman's composition. I'll do my best to remember to post a link below, so please remind me if I haven't done that, and obviously go check out that excellent reduction video too. As with any orchestration analysis, be it thorough analysis or something lighter like what we're doing today, I think it's always worth taking a look at the overall instrumentation, the resources on hand for the orchestrators and composers to use. For this cue, Danny Elfman uses a large orchestra featuring 3 flute players, 2 alto flutes and 1 bass flute in this cue that we're looking at. There's 2 oboes, 1 doubling English horn, and there's 3 clarinets, 1 standard B flat, 1 B flat bass and 1 E flat contralto, 2 bassoons, 6 horns, 2 trumpets, 2 tenor trombones, 1 bass trombone, 1 tuba, a percussionist which is on chimes in this cue, a timpani player, 2 harps, a choir which includes alto boys, and a string orchestra. There is also a piano line included in the score, but it also says pre-laid organ over it. The first technique I'd like to highlight from Sleepy Hollow's score is Sul Ponticello. It's used at the very beginning and recurs throughout the opening cue, occasionally paired with bowed or fingered tremolo techniques. Sul Ponticello directs string players to position their bows closer to the bridge of their instruments, coaxing out a glassier, more ethereal sound by emphasising upper partials. The London Symphony Orchestra, or rather a string quartet from the London Symphony Orchestra, has a fantastic video demonstrating an absolute plethora of string techniques, which I'll link below. Additionally though, I have prepared an edit showcasing the contrast between natural ordinary playing Sul Ponticello and molto Sul Ponticello performing. So we'll take a quick look at that now.
Can you still hear the pitches just about?
Note how the timbre changes. It becomes thinner, yet harsher at the same time. Now, Note Performer doesn't do Sul Ponticello justice in my opinion, but here is the string line extracted from the opening of Sleepy Hollow. Listen with the timbre of the previous video in mind, and then go and see if you can pick out that timbre from the original soundtrack. Another intriguing technique employed in Sleepy Hollow's orchestration is the flutter tonguing flutes. This technique involves rolling the tongue to create a trembling or fluttering effect, achieved by an R or R sound, by rolling your tongue, or a kind of gargling sound which engages the back of the mouth and throat. Used on woodwinds and brass, it mimics tremolo, which is akin to kind of trembling when frightened, or that's what I posited in the previous video last week. Flutter tonguing is an effective technique to evoke unease or tension in the music. I suppose another way to think about it in relation to physiology and the tremolo is through the term flutter. Nerves and anxiety, at least in the UK, can be described as having butterflies fluttering around in your stomach. So there's a reference there to a bit of anxiousness and apprehensiveness, things like that. In this cue, Elfman and Bartek employ 2 alto flutes and a bass flute, a clever choice considering their less common presence in orchestral compositions. Arguably, these less familiar sounds add an element of obscurity and discomfort to the listener, intensifying the disturbing effect, at least to a certain extent. What's particularly interesting in this cue is the doubling of the auxiliary flutes in octaves with the tuba, B-flat bass clarinet, and the E-flat contrabass, contra alto clarinet. Let's first listen to the flutes on their own, then with the flutter tonguing, and finally with the other instruments to appreciate the unsettling texture created. Again, Note Performer, at least the way I've set it up in Sibelius, isn't the best at representing these techniques, but you know, budget, I don't have a flute player, so we'll just have to use Note Performer. But I'll try and find some videos and link them below for flutter tonguing as well, so you can get a more accurate depiction. But here's the extract. Another technique explored in Sleepy Hollow is the use of muted horns. In my orchestration of Mozart last week, I touched on the use of hand-stopped horns, which I used in that orchestration. However, here Elfman and Bartek opt for muted horns, similar to the straight mute for a trumpet in shape. The horn mute, albeit larger than that trumpet mute, produces a comparable effect. Sort of like the Sul Ponticello we discussed earlier, the mute alters the relationship and prominence of both the fundamental pitch being played and the overtone structure of that pitch, distorting and veiling the sound. This distortion introduces an unsettling quality, heightening the eerie atmosphere within the composition. Let's listen to a brief excerpt from the horn section. I've included a cued part for the first horn in the soundtrack. The cued part, though, I think is omitted as far as my ears can tell from the recordings I've listened to. However, I thought I'd leave it in for this Note Performer demonstration so that we could hear the contrast between the open and muted horns. Our exploration concludes with the employment of a quarter tone tuning and glissando or portamento on the bass trombone. Firstly, a quarter tone represents a pitch between the standard notes represented on a piano, a pitch that falls outside our conventional Western pitch systems. Secondly, the glissando or portamento, as indicated in the Sleepy Hollow score, involves sliding between 2 notes, utilising the slide mechanism of the trombone. The player smoothly transitions between pitches, audibly displaying the full range of pitches between the two notes as a slide, creating that distinctive glissando portamento sliding effect. This technique introduces an unfamiliarity in pitch perception due to the inclusion of a quarter tone, an unconventional pitch within our accustomed Western musical scales. Additionally, the use of glissando is relatively uncommon in many instruments, making it an intriguing inclusion within this orchestration. While some brass instruments and occasionally woodwinds, though less commonly, can bend pitches around the notes of the chromatic scale, it's less reliable due to their use of keys and vowels. The trombone, however, with its slide mechanism, offers a more dependable means of achieving the glissando effect. Let's listen to a sample of this effect on the trombone in isolation using Note Performer to demonstrate. Exploring the instrumental techniques in Sleepy Hollow has been a revealing journey. We've uncovered 5 ways to sculpt our music into a more haunting sonic landscape, providing valuable insights for our understanding of Gothic horror orchestration and composition. From Sul Ponticello to muted horns and flutter-tonguing flutes to pitch-bending trombones. If you're fascinated by the orchestration marvels we've dissected today, imagine the depth of knowledge waiting for you in orchestrating Gothic horror. This course provides a deep and practical experience delving into the eerie world of horror orchestration and offering you the tools and insights to craft spine-chilling orchestrations. Find out more below with links to further information on the course. See you again soon.